Okay, thank you. And with that, first order of business is to report from the Selectmen. I just want to notice that for the public's benefit, the board did this via email, but our Board of Selectmen meeting on November 14th is going to be canceled. We'll be holding instead, because there was some issues with that date, we're going to be holding a special Board of Selectmen meeting, which will be pretty much our regular meeting, on Monday, November 13th at 7 p.m. With the intention, I think, of holding a public information session prior to that in the strategic plan. So just want to make a note of that, and you guys should have got an updated calendar invite for that. Yeah. The other thing I do is, I just want to read a quick statement on an issue that has been kind of, I've had a couple things, emails from residents, and so I just want to read a statement for the record. A number of residents recently reached out to me about the tragic events occurring in Israel. Although I posted a statement on social media, I just wanted to acknowledge for the minutes here my thoughts on this terrible event. I, along with so many Madison residents, are outraged by the horrific attacks launched on October 7th and heartbroken by the tragic violence engulfing the region. We in Madison stand united against hatefulness and intolerance and denounce the senseless barbarism taking so many innocent lives. 2 weeks ago, in the aftermath of the attacks, I had the sad honor of attending a vigil being held at the Temple Beth Tikva, and participated in a very moving service filled with temple members and people of many faiths coming together to share in sympathy and grief. I want to assure our residents that the town has been in contact with the formal Jewish community in Madison through the temple and has been consulting with temple leaders on how town government might be best supportive of their community, especially in matters of security. I've also had conversations with some board members on how to engage our town and community more through future events focused around issues of tolerance and combating hateful language and crimes. It is regretful that we need to reinforce these messages locally, but recognize its importance, especially during these trying times. My deepest sympathies go out to those families who may have experienced a loss. My heart is with you during these difficult times. So with that, I just wanted to share in the public record with that to express some of the things that I did mention on social media. But I know a lot of people aren't on social media, and God bless them, because they have a much better life for it. So with that, I guess I'd like to pass on to any more liaison reports or selectmen comments.
Jen, do you want to start out?
Oh, yeah, I do have a liaison report. So for our ad hoc affordable housing committee, I'm sorry, is that what you were asking for, or were you, okay. Ad hoc Affordable Housing Committee. They've been meeting faithfully over the past several months, inviting speakers to increase their knowledge base so that they can work towards implementing the town's previously adopted affordable housing plan. Committee members are currently working through meeting with different organizations and groups within town through their power mapping sessions to get their feedback on housing needs and desires. And also, the group has recently adopted a proposed list of duties to become a permanent committee. And they are working with Aaron to bring that forward to us as Board of Selectmen and hoping to present that sometime in November.
Okay, great. Any other selectmen comments?
I do, but
Yeah, I'd like to provide an update on the Academy Community Center Building Committee. It has just been 12 months since that committee first met, and I'm looking at their milestone schedule, and I'm delighted to tell you that they've completed the first 54 steps that are involved in putting together a building. There are numerous steps ahead, but they're pretty much right on the original schedule that was laid out by the project management team. And they are still contemplating being on following this timeline towards the opening of the building in late 2025. So roughly 2 years from now, there'll be another significant time period of 6 to 12 months to do the detailed design work, and then roughly a year of construction. So we are right on schedule. I realize the public can't see the progress because the progress is mostly architectural and mechanical drawings, but this project is moving right along.
Can you remind us what the projected opening is?
Late 2025. Is that right, Austin?
Yes, sir. Terrific.
Scott or Bruce? Yeah.
I do.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to call out the Madison Beach Hotel. As we know, they have started up their grassy, the concerts on the grassy strip there during the summer. And this year, the recipient of the money they've received was the Madison Ambulance Association. The
Awesome.
number that was recently donated by the hotel was a little over $15,000.
Wow.
So
That's amazing.
the association and the town are grateful and thank you for your
That's
generosity. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Wow.
Excellent.
The other thing I have isn't an update, more of a comment. I heard from a couple of people recently that have applied through the website for volunteer appointed commissions and said that they never heard anything back. In doing a little research, so when the form is filled in, it automatically triggers an email, 3 emails actually. The RTC, the DTC, and then the town each receive a copy of the application if it's been completed successfully. And I assured them that it's quite possible maybe that they didn't quite complete the process properly, because it's unlikely that 3 people would not have
Got a response.
done some sort of follow-up, right?
Right.
One person, maybe 3 people, not so much. But maybe there's an opportunity to look at the process and to see if there's a way we can tighten it up, maybe include some sort of receipt.
Very
So
simple thing to
you
do. Yeah.
click that you've done it, and you get a receipt, and maybe
Yeah.
even a header at the beginning. If you don't get a receipt at the end of this process, something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
You need to call. So an
Yeah.
opportunity to maybe
Yeah, we'll
improve the
pass
process.
that on to Art, so.
Similarly, though, I also heard, kind of to build on what you were just saying, that somebody had stepped down from a committee, so we went back to the list of people that we had interviewed, figured out who the next person up was. But then that individual never was notified. So I found out a little bit through the grapevine, but we just got to make sure that that process kind of continues.
Clearly, there's an opportunity. to-
Yeah, I think we just gotta close the loop, I think.
We just can't let volunteers slip through our fingers.
We have so few of them.
And that's the real thing.
Well, actually, we
Yeah.
don't have so few of them. We have probably over 150 volunteers, so there's a lot to track, but there's
Well,
no
the new
excuse.
ones, the new ones that.
But there's
Yeah.
no excuse to not follow up
Yeah.
and make sure that people are being both thanked for applying as well as, which they should get a thank you for applying. We appreciate you submitting your.
Right.
So we'll look
Something
into that. I mean, this
simple
is
as that, yeah.
the first time I've heard that people were not getting, that they weren't getting responses from applications, so.
And I don't know, I mean.
Is it how they're applying? Do we know? Is it-
So, and normally the town clerk sends out a letter to anybody appointed to a board of commission that says, welcome, you were appointed to this, and you have to come in and get sworn in. So there might have been a drop in the process for one person, but
Well, we've had some technology changes, right? So I don't know.
that has nothing to do with the technology changes.
Okay,
In
okay,
terms
fine.
of, the technology changes had to do more with posting of agendas and minutes, but in terms of the process for appointments, that's been the same for years.
Okay.
The application process as well as the follow-up process through the town clerk's office, but all important points. It's good to know that, and we'll follow up and see where things got broken down in
Yeah.
the process.
It was also observed to me that the application is quite long with an essay section. And maybe there's an opportunity for us to tighten it up. Actually, I would propose delegating that to the 2 town committees to get together and say,
Awesome.
how can we make this application a little bit more user-friendly? Something to.
One pager.
Yeah,
One pager.
yeah. So,
Short
I
and
don't think
sweet.
I ever noticed, I know there's a question of why do you want to serve on the board, but that's pretty much, I guess there's a few questions about what skills and experience can you apply to the board, but I didn't really see an essay, so.
well, I think that's the.
Some
People feel-
some treat it as an
Yeah.
essay.
Now, actually,
so-
being
yeah.
the most verbose, I'd be the one that would write an essay, probably,
So
so.
I think some people skip it, some people actually take a lot
Yeah,
of time.
Right, you're right, some people put like a sentence or don't even.
But I would hate to think that it intimidates somebody to
Right.
stopping and saying, oh, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna do this.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's it.
Right, certainly pass those comments along. No other comments? No? Okay, great. All right, moving on to item number 6 in business. Oh, wait, sorry. Item number 5, citizen comments. Many apologies. Anybody have their hand raised, Jack?
Sorry, no hands are raised.
Okay.
I can't see it, but do we have members of the public attending on Zoom?
Yes, there are about 13 or 12 on. There's 12 members.
These including staff. and
Nice.
Some people that are presenting, but, yep.
Thank you for attending.
Okay, with that, then we'll move on, and there's an opportunity at the end of the meeting also to share public comment. So item number 6, and I'd just like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
A special note on this agenda is a resignation from our Shellfish Commission. Steve Nikitar, I think I'm pronouncing it right. As far as I know, he's been on that commission for decades. Like 2 or 3
Yeah.
decades.
Wow, wow.
So replacing his skill set, maybe on the
Yeah.
challenge.
Service, yes.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for your service, and it's incredible to be that dedicated, and obviously, people love the Shellfish Commission, and it's nice to see that we have several new appointments to the.
Yeah, 2 of them,
commission.
that's awesome.
Which is great, so much appreciated with that. Also, just a shout out to the Temple's proclamation for their opening of their new facility, so that was. Otherwise, all in favor of the consent agenda as presented, say aye. Aye. Great. Passes. And now item number 7. So I'd like to welcome up the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. And I don't know if you want to come up and come in front, is that okay? So,
I should.
and then also, I know Aaron Mannix is here to join us. If you could introduce yourselves and your role.
Yeah.
And then you have a presentation that's going to be shared, I
I
guess?
do,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, great.
Aaron,
Thank
do
you.
you have that on your screen or should I share mine?
Whichever is easier for you, John. I'm happy to share it, or if you prefer to be in control.
I think it's easier probably for, well, you'd have to log into the meeting. Are you
I
logged in?
updated the link right here. I don't want to waste too much time, but let's see if it goes first try.
If not, then Aaron could just do it.
Yeah, I can do it.
So it would be helpful just to talk a little bit about your committee, because I know a lot of people are very interested in this topic, and then, you guys are doing a lot of great work, so.
Yeah, well, so just, I think it's gonna work. Oh, Aaron's got it.
Does that work?
Yeah, that works great. Let's do that. Things are downloading. I don't know what's going on. I've definitely been on Zoom before. So,
Not your first rodeo?
not my first rodeo. Yeah, so I'm here tonight to present annual updates with the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I was looking back, I was last presenting to you all in 2019, which was like a
Oh, wow.
lifetime ago, really. Pre-COVID, packed room, I recall. And so we'll touch on some of that. But I wanted to take a moment tonight because we've made you mentioned milestones earlier, and I think the group has made some terrific milestones. And I wanted to note those and then address where we're going to be moving in the future with where things are going. So I wanted to kind of just focus, as you mentioned, who we are and what we do. It's certainly a hot topic. I ride bikes, run, walk. Have a small child that does all those things faster. So I'm very intrigued to ensure that this is a safe and nice asset for the town. But the group, I mean, number one is we want to improve the bicycle safety. We want to make sure that people don't have incidents, nobody's injured, nobody's killed. I mean, that's number one. And I think we all share that. That's just human nature. Number two is we want to really work with the town to ensure that this is equitable across the town. Everybody's voice is heard. Certainly connecting North Madison to downtown is challenging on bicycle or foot. So that's a large thing. And we'd like to do some more outreach. A lot of our findings are showing maybe education's not necessarily a key point that's addressed. You mentioned 3 feet, giving birth to a bicyclist. A lot of people don't know that. You know, a lot of people don't know to walk the other way when you're walking against traffic, so I see that daily. And then a large part of what we've been doing is we've been developing a master plan, and I'll take some time to touch upon that, but this is specific to Madison's needs, and I'll get into this later in the presentation, but we can think of this as really a playbook. In my mind, it's a book on the shelf that we can pull off that's gonna look at safe corridors through town or address challenging areas where maybe traffic or congestion could be an issue, and how we could fix that. So that's kind of been our focus for the last few years. You can scroll down. So this is a very sobering fact, but I wanted to just kind of look big picture at why I'm interested in this group, and I know our members, I speak to them as well. So I did this slide deck in September, and in September, there was 5 pedestrians killed in the state. And they were either on foot or on bicycles. As of that week, it was the 40th week of the year, there have been 41 preventable deaths. So when you do the math on that, it's a pretty terrible issue. And I keep track of this too, and it's been continuing on. So just kind of a big part of why we want to improve things and what we're thinking here. But let's get to the good stuff. So we've been very busy. Our group is certainly passionate about it, and we've had some fantastic events and outreach. Some of these are just some small things like safe yard sign, travel signs. So walk this way against traffic. I'm sure you noticed the blue and yellow signs all down the beach route. People loved them, and they were calling to see if we could provide them with some for their yards. We did a program with the Madison Police Department where we incentivized young kids that wore helmets or practiced safe walking or biking. The police would actually stop them and give them a gift certificate for Ashley's ice cream. So we had a small bit there, and then I think a person in town actually made a donation so we could provide more coupons for the kids. So that's a program that will continue on. Can adults get it? Now I've tried. Believe me. And then we've been trying. I mean, like everybody, you know, God bless the people that aren't on social media, but for those that are, we've been trying to engage within social media just to keep our ears open to what's happening in town. Certainly, the Madison Facebook groups are always bringing more interest in safe walking or biking and in areas that we should take note of. So we try to pay attention to that too. This year and last year actually, we offered parking lot days. You may not be familiar with these, but it's basically, it was born from an event that we did, which was a bike rodeo, which focuses on safe practice for biking and handling skills. But the kids are one of our members that was very astute found that the kids just wanted to ride their bikes in a safe area and do circles and play games and just do fun things. So this year we had, I believe it was 3 events. One I think was rained out, which is a miracle. I think it's rained every weekend. But we had these at the Ryerson parking lot, and we set up different activities and games and limbo and circles, and really the kids just rode around in a safe environment. So it was super fun. It's probably between like the ages of 4 and 8 was main target there. Next up was a bicycle rodeo and a vintage and exotic bike exhibit. This was a very cool event where we set up, again, safe courses for the kids to ride around. When they did the course, they got a certificate of achievement. Peggy was here and she got to sign the achievement awards for some of the kids that completed the course. The police were there with the motorcycles, so that was a big, glorious moment for the kids. And the vintage and exotic bike was awesome. We had how many people could ride on that one bike?
Oh my God, 5.
5?
Oh,
5-person
They
bike.
call it tandem with 5.
Yeah, there was just some very cool bikes. So we had people, mostly adults, coming by to check out all those cool bikes. And that was at the senior center this spring or summer. It was raining that day.
Yeah, that's.
But
And then we've done walk to school days at both Jeffrey and Brierson. These were done through Bower Park, so we could take the trail to the school campus. And then also with the new Land Trust Trail through Lenore Drive there for Ryerson. So that was very cool. Those hit a bit of a hiccup during the COVID times, but those will continue forward from here on forward. Some parents and I believe the PTA have expressed interest in continuing those. So those are just some of the recent kind of public participation events that we've been involved with. So the next topic here is our master plan. So as I mentioned, the way I think of this, and I'm very analog, I guess, in my thinking is it's really a book that's going to sit on the shelf for the town. And this is basically a playbook, like I said, of shovel-ready projects and initiatives that are specific to the community needs. Some of these can be easy, medium, or hard. So we could have, we didn't want to cap it at being that's too complex, that's too hard, but we did have some recommendations that were easy, medium, and hard. And these covered a lot of different areas. So on my arrow here, we have the blue dot. So back in 2019, when I met most of you all were here, and I presented the map. If you remember, I showed some of the map areas and we did a basic inventory of all the sidewalks, the dangerous areas, the trails, all the cool stuff throughout town. We took that and then we did a survey with the town. I believe we got close to 600 survey results, which is pretty phenomenal. And we took that and kind of put together areas where we wanted to assess the town with road safety audits. So in conjunction with UConn and CT Department of Transportation, we had road safety audits done. I believe we had 4 done throughout the town. So we broke these into different sectors or regions. We had east to west, north to south, downtown was a focus area, the shoreline beach, kind of the Madison Mile stretch there. And we walked those with the UConn person and made notes, and they came back and gave us audits on these areas that said, here's some areas that are of concern, here's how we could address it, and onwards. So that was the red dot. Between the red dot and the green dot is really where we, as a team, came together and started to formulate our master plan. So we started to write out actual specific recommendations and how we could approach this. And this is a document that we have. It's really a living document, but it's upwards of 40 to 70 pages, depending on how much of it you want to take. And it's got a voiced area for all the areas that were addressed by the public in those surveys. And then from there, where we are now, the next step is to publish the plan. So this is basically where we would work collaboratively with Aaron and town planning and Johnny Nako's group, Public Works. And we would find a group and put together this with a consultant or a actual plan. So it's formalized.
Inside the plan, sorry to interrupt.
No.
Inside the plan with things like your rodeo or parking lot days, are those types of activities documented in the plan as suggestions for future years?
That's a good question. So the plan is focused specifically on road works now. So it's
Okay, so looking as is assessment.
as is assessment, exactly. But that's a good, I like that suggestion too, because I think one of the things our group keeps coming back to is education is a big area of challenge. Students don't learn how to go on the right side or the wrong side of the road, or how to wear a helmet and things like this.
Totally.
So that could fit into a certain area. I need to talk to the group and see where that may fit, but the master plan is really focused, and a lot of towns with bicycle pedestrian committees all have these master plans. The great thing with the master plan, from what we've learned about, is with this, you have basically these shovel-ready projects. So now the town can start to go out and look for grants, or if they find the grants, they have that ready to go. So it's basically creating a little bit more efficiency within these areas. And it's also putting through a lot of the legwork on the different solutions. So as it went through all these different audits,
as we did the town inventory, the mapping, things like that. All that efficiency has been done already, so it doesn't need to get redone. So even it could perhaps cut down on consultant fees too, if that's something that Public Works is doing. So we've looked at a lot of different towns that have come up with these, and those are the areas with the master plan.
I do think that granting is important. I know that the state looks very favorably to have these types of plans in place in terms of an endorsement of projects. And one of the things that we've talked a lot about is trying to get the consultant in, right, to review it in a more detailed way, and putting together some real project lists.
Exactly, so.
It's taken it to another level now. You guys have done an incredible amount of work, I think, as volunteers. But it's like you need to take that next step now. And so it's something that actually can be used to implement something, right? More specific design,
Absolutely.
engineering, construction.
Yeah, we put together several.
Serious offering already.
We'll take it. We put
Grant's idea.
We put together many plans, and I mean, the drafts are beautiful
Yeah.
with images and everything. But it's the language is done in our language, and we're not engineers or consultants that have these polished projects. So we can't really make it finalized in that sense.
Well, and I think there's also the parameters that regulations require, right?
Exactly,
And,
exactly.
all
So
those
there's
types of things.
engineering parts
Right.
that come into the play here.
Safety standards.
Safety standards, some of the technical mapping bits as
Mhm.
well. But the exciting area is that it's essentially ready to go. The plan is polished as the group can get. Over the last, that arrow has been really about 4 years of shrinking it down. Al, I believe you were with us for one of the walks on the shoreline, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So it's been a work in progress for many years. But it's been a fabulous learning event too. So to maintain the momentum, I think the groups has a fabulous momentum with it. We'd like to ensure the sustainability of our public participation events. We find that that's it's a key feature of our group for many reasons. One is we want to be sure that we hear what's happening in town, and we want to also share safe practices. So it's a give and take. We've also talked about some potential changes with our charge too, or perhaps looking at redefining the charge, because it was in the early days more focused on preparing a master plan. And now we're not necessarily done with that, but we also want to be involved with these other areas that are more active in participation. So that's something we're reviewing. I'm not sure if that would change, but just to kind of put it on the radar.
Well, I think it's a worthwhile conversation, because I think as you move more into actual projects, now you also have to work with the local traffic authority, which is under the police commission. You have to kind of I know you are coordinated, you have a liaison from the police department with your committee, but I think trying to create a little bit more coordination, because some of these things will require their approvals as well on signage and things like that. And then obviously Public Works, planning. And then I think just getting, a fuller, well, to be honest, one of the priorities that came out of our strategic planning process is sidewalks and bicycle pedestrian safety. So the other thing is that I think trying to figure through in terms of funding community projects like this or different events that you have, and then also funding to get the plan finalized, so it's something that we can use to apply for grants, and actually maybe some of the projects go into CIP. One of the things that's been how Coastal Resiliency has handled it, they have their 2016 plan and they have a list of all these infrastructure projects. They put together a prioritization matrix. So that would help us in terms of the CIP planning process, say, okay, and they look at what's going to have the greatest impact on the community versus lower impact, but not saying it's not important, but something that addresses 5 houses versus, 100, or a road that's used heavily as a major thoroughfare. So Those are the types of things a consultant can help you work through as well.
Yeah.
And would help us in terms of projects, that we want to initiate through CIP.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be crucial. I mean, our public outreach and our events have been very homegrown and set up in a way that it's works well, but it's something, we've been not really doing anything for our funding. It's been just homegrown. So certainly to keep those going, it wouldn't be much, but there might be something we want to address there with that.
I'm curious in the master plan, as you guys are putting this together too, kind of build on what Peggy was just saying. Related to CIP, we typically prioritize. Did you guys prioritize like what you think is like your number one thing that the town might need?
I think so. We did. It would be something we want to review with the consultants, and that was basically through our town public outreach. So based on that, we want to focus again on maybe getting more outreach from the town and getting more engagement. And that's kind of another part between those green and red dots that we would do again with the consultants.
I have another thought. I know we gave you a very narrow charge when we created your committee. I had the pleasure a few weekends ago of riding a rail trail in Massachusetts. And I couldn't help but notice the tourist and economic development opportunities that trail provided. And I realize we have an economic development commission and we have a Shoreline Greenway Trail organization. But I think Peggy is part of our master planning. I would like to see us have some very smart people give us some advice about how we can take advantage of the fact there are people coming to this area to ride bikes. And you've probably noticed the Shoreline Greenway Trail parking lot at Hammonasset. I don't know that all those cars there are cyclists, but there seems to be an awful lot of cars in that parking lot. And I think there are a lot of bikers in the area. And I don't think we give them any kind of welcoming spirit or advice or signage to help them find their way to our downtown, for example.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And this sort of eco-tourism of sorts is booming. I mean, there's towns in Vermont that were next to nothing 10 years ago. And then COVID accelerated it, and now more outdoor recreation is adding to the economies of these towns. And Madison has it. It's just more hidden, I suppose. I know people are coming to the Madison downtown area for the Shoreline Greenway Trail in those areas. But then we have the Rockland Bike Park and that up in North Madison, as well as the Land Trust Circuit. So part of our master plan is actually a recreational trail that connects Meigs Point to Durham off trails and roads. And
Wow.
so it's all kind of mixed hiking and trail. I mean, something like that. It's similar in Guilford, they have the Blue Trail that runs. And it's a big attraction. I'm on many running Facebook groups and people are always looking for these crazy long things to connect. And we certainly have it, and it would be a definite attractor for the town, and it would definitely put money into shops and restaurants and small businesses.
So good.
So yeah, having this and really orchestrating and making it known that this is not only here, but the town is a safe harbor of sorts. As a cyclist, I know certain areas I don't ever want to ride my bike just because it's very dangerous.
Especially near Bruce's school bus.
Well, you have.
Just beers when you.
So it's, and that's really the goal with bringing this all together is to have this, again, it's, I hate to overuse it, but it really is just have a turnkey solution.
Yeah.
So one of the things,
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll finish on this
Yeah, yeah.
point. I'd be very interested to know how we can make our downtown more friendly to bicyclists who are passing through.
That we have that in the report.
Okay,
So that was there was many areas that were very challenging, and downtown was one of them, just because of the layout and I don't want to get into the details, but something as simple as the way cars park is challenging if you're riding your bike through downtown because you pull out of the pizza place. It's like, whoops, I didn't really see you there, but sorry.
It's challenging for cars too.
And it's challenging for cars.
Yeah.
So we do look at that and address it. And like I said, the recommendations are kind of focused on easy, medium, and hard. So if, if we could be the king or queen of the day and do anything we want, here's what we could do. If we want to be more reasonably minded, here's another solution that will work. So it's kind of many different areas.
Even something as simple as having some more bike racks downtown, where people can park
Yes.
their bike and waltz downtown.
Right.
I think Al knows a guy, maybe. Like that maybe you backed.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, I certainly think all of us are enthusiastic to see this go to the next level. And I think it is going to fall perfectly in line with our strategic goals over the next couple of
No
years. And so I think one of the things as we talked about, this might be earmarked for the planning reserve. We'll talk about using some of those funding, how to move this forward so that your committee can then move forward with kind of the master planning process. Also, through the budgeting process, we talked about putting maybe a small funding proposal. Some boards and commissions do have a small amount of money set aside for events or things like that. And it might either be directly for the committee or through the sponsoring department in town. So we'll talk about that through the budgeting process. So I would encourage you to put some ideas about just so you're not having to buy or, whatever, water bottles or whatever
Right,
certificates. I know you guys did all that on your own, right? With your own
Yeah.
funding. So, just having some sort of resources for events. The town has a precedence of doing that for concerts, other events at different venues and stuff in town. So I think thinking through the budgeting process is going to be starting here in probably late November. So putting something together that you might want to submit, and then we can talk about that in terms of we're starting with the next fiscal year.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's great.
Right?
What else do you need from us? Anything else?
So right now, I believe that's where we'll go. I think we're going to be working more with Aaron and putting together, really the next step with the master plan would be to begin looking at groups that can help us with that. So either requests for qualifications or proposals and start learning more about how that would go.
I think I can speak for all of us, but I think we're in to help. So whatever we can do to help. I'm thoroughly impressed with what you guys are doing. So
That's great.
Awesome.
Is the report that we received, Aaron, from Scrog, is the timing just coincidental or are the two related?
Well, we thought it was a good opportunity to just share that information with you now because we were discussing bike pedestrian committee and the committee did get some announcements, on our updates. The bike ped study, the safety study that we conducted was initiated through the engineering department, through Johnny Anako, through SCROG, and it was through the UPWP program, and it was a $40,000 grant that the town received last year to study both bicycle and pedestrian access from downtown, the intersection of Route 79 and Boston Post Road, heading west to West Wharf Road, and then southerly to connect with the Surf Club Road to the Surf Club to try to find options for connecting the downtown to our beaches. And so this, the plan is lengthy. It's 130 pages. We had two public outreach sessions during that process and worked with BL companies that were the professional consultants that were chosen for the job. There is a lot of existing conditions information in there, just generally traffic counts, the existing conditions of the roads, land use in the area. But towards the end of the plan, it's similar to what John discussed. There's options for each road, and they're based on cost and time. And so they're set up where if we had the opportunity to pursue funding or project to, fully install a sidewalk connection all the way to the surf club, or if there are smaller crosswalk improvements or things of that nature that we can do in the interim that may not be as costly. So it really, the table at the end is sort of a pick and choose. It does recommend our overall preference, I think, in the plan, but John and I thought it would be important that you saw the plan and so that we have it. And it was designed to really fit into an overall town master plan also, so that when we designed the scope of this and how it was written, it could really just plug into that section for the committee.
And this was kind of talked about last year when we applied for it because of the sidewalk project going on Woodland Road leading down to 79. So, you know, a lot of us talked about how the route that a lot of people love to do is come from the surf club, come up to the town green, and then come to town. And so it'd be nice to have, once this project is completed, another wave that will continue. Plus, we're having this downtown center project plan that we're hoping to move forward on the final phase, going from the firehouse down to 79. So this all kind of starts coming together. So the good thing is we have kind of a list of projects that we can start evaluating over the next 6 to 12 months and look at how that will fit into everything else, and then make some decisions about priorities. But also, I will say the grant thing again, this is a big focus at the state level, is making more things accessible to bicycles and pedestrians. So I think that probably wasn't the case maybe 10 years ago through DOT. Everything was not oriented that way. So there's been very much of a change of tone, and they're looking for things that, you know, infrastructure type projects and things that might enhance that in different communities. So
Great idea.
yeah, so I haven't read the whole final report yet. I will be honest about that, but we'll, you know, spend some time going through that and then figuring out how we can kind of put this all together with this overall plan for the town.
And CIP too.
Yeah, and then CIP, right. Once we get kind of where our priorities are, then the projects be submitted into CIP for next year, some of them, at least get them into the 5-year plans.
Awesome.
So,
Great.
Great.
okay,
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
great, thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot, Aaron. Thank you, guys. Thanks for all the work you guys are doing on that committee, so much appreciated.
Thanks for your support.
So with that, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you guys again as we move forward with the
How do
master
you make this
plan.
transition? I want to see you gracefully make this one.
One's above ground, one's underground.
All right.
That's how I'll look at it as. So the next one is the update from our Water Pollution Control Authority, another volunteer board that we have in town. And so we want to invite members up to join us. The town undertook last year, for the first time since the 1980s, a review of all our wastewater treatment facilities in Madison. And so the committee, Tom Hansen chairs it, and, you know, our health directors here, and then our advisors, Weston and Sampson, which are conducting the study, are getting closer to the finish of this, and we're excited to hear where they are on the process. So I guess with that, let's see, we're waiting for.
Jacqueline, could we see if Tom Hansen is on, and maybe Graham Curtis, I think, other participants?
Yeah, I don't see.
GH?
Yeah, Tom GH. Yeah.
Is that him? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so I guess with that, Tom, Trent, do you want to introduce the team? And Tom will hopefully, you got to unmute yourself.
Yep.
Okay, great. And I don't know if you want to give a few minute overview of kind of where you are in your process. I know you've been working hard on this last year.
Sure. So as you guys know, I'm Trent, I'm Director of Health. Tom Hansen is the chair of WPCA. We've been working with Weston and Sampson, Matt Germain, and John Ruvo. Today, they want to provide somewhat of just a general update to where we are. We've been having some WPCA meetings along with them, just to move along our facilities plan. Where we are now, I believe we've already gotten a response back from DEP to look to get the reimbursement funding. You know, once I think we can speak to that today as well, Matt. And we are at pretty much at the stage now where we're waiting for Weston and Sampson to give us those hard, clear-cut recommendations, whether they're structural or non-structural alternatives to how we can, implement just either town ordinances or maybe some type of wastewater district or management district, if you will, in town. But John, I believe is going to take it away, and Matt is going to be able to answer questions that are more on the technical part in terms of the funding or anything you guys may have.
Everyone able to see my screen and hear me?
Yep.
All right, great. Hi, everyone. My name is John Ruvo from Weston and Sampson. Thanks for having us tonight to provide you with an update on the town's wastewater facilities plan. For this evening's presentation, we'll provide a summary status of the plan to date, briefly review the areas of concern in town, identify wastewater treatment alternatives, and finally discuss which of those alternative options might be appropriate for those areas of concern. To date, Weston and Sampson has completed the in-depth review of the septic system records that we obtained from the health department for these certain areas of concern. From these records, GIS mapping covering a variety of conditions have been generated, and based on those results and previous work reviewing existing conditions throughout the town, a more thorough examination of each area of concern was made. From that, applicable treatment alternatives for the town were then identified and evaluated. That and more has been incorporated into the interim draft facilities plan. Just as a quick refresher, here are the previously identified areas of concern that were identified following input from the WPCA and the health department. The in-depth septic system review focused on 3 of the areas of concern and included the Circle Beach, Neck Road, and Garnet Park Road areas. These areas were chosen for the in-depth septic system record review based upon analysis of those existing conditions and any limiting factors that could potentially affect septic system performance. Combining the septic system record information with the existing condition review, those limiting factors became a little bit more refined, as noted here. With regards to soil suitability and location considerations, does a faster percolation rate allow for enough time for proper wastewater renovation before reaching the area groundwater table? Are certain areas where systems have reached their effective lifespan or may exhibit a higher degree of failure in the future present? Are some of the parcels able to comply with the existing code? Have variances been issued? Are there incomplete or missing records? If variances have been granted, as seen on this map here, will public water access provide some flexibility in siting septic systems? In many cases, the lot sizes, especially those closer to the shoreline, as in this area, are smaller and can limit the available wastewater treatment options. This can be even more pronounced when residents seek to winterize or expand their homes, but cannot as they run up against septic limitations. Combining these factors and considerations, the following wastewater treatment alternatives were identified for the town. These have been broken down into constructed and non-constructed solution categories. No single alternative was considered a one-size-fits-all, so each was evaluated further for inclusion as part of the plan's recommendations. To expand on how an alternative was evaluated and might be implemented, we can revisit a previously discussed and prevalent condition throughout the areas of concern, those smaller lot sizes. Small lot sizes may leave inadequate separation distances for septic system installations or repairs. One such area that exhibits a high residential density is the Dudds Village community. This neighborhood has many smaller cottages squeezed into a small area. With limited space to site a conventional septic system, it may be a good candidate for a constructed treatment alternative, such as a small community septic system. A very generic conceptual layout of such a system is shown here, utilizing the nearby Salt Meadow Park as a potential site for the treatment train components. The strong and exchange field areas could also be utilized to potentially site a community septic system. serving a couple of the areas of concern to include Neck Road and Middle Beach. Pictured here is another conceptual layout of such a system, using the Strong Field campus for the treatment train and or the exchange field area for the dispersal systems. Neighboring Lowry Field could also be a potential site. We've also looked at a couple others, including the OLM campus along Neck Road. While a community system may seem like a good fit, the diverse makeup of some of these neighborhoods still makes it difficult to implement or to get the community to buy into. This section of Neck Road area, for example, still shows a wide variety in the size of the lots. Larger ones are more prevalent to the east of the Overshore drives, while smaller ones are more prevalent to the west. The most important part in identifying choosing any of these alternatives is going to be their ability to be implemented by the town. While a broad community system can address the neighborhood's treatment needs, they are very expensive and time-consuming to get designed, approved, and constructed. They require additional personnel, such as the completely separate sewer department or a contract operator, to provide oversight and routine maintenance. And finally, such a system would need all of the area's residents to participate, whether they truly need it or not. With all those factors considered, small community systems will not be included as part of the recommended plan. However, they were evaluated as part of DEEP's requirements for the facilities planning effort. A better alternative approach would be the creation of a decentralized wastewater management district to regulate and monitor each property owner's septic system. Each parcel would be required to evaluate their septic system's performance is in line with Connecticut Public Health Code and the DEEP guidelines and make improvements to bring it into compliance. For any septic systems that cannot be upgraded to conform to code, advanced treatment systems would have to be installed. These systems provide a higher degree of treatment compared to conventional ones through the use of mechanical and biological processes, being in effect a miniature wastewater treatment plant. The establishment of a wastewater management district would legally allow the town to require their installation on a case-by-case basis. This approach has several benefits when compared to the other alternatives. Implementation would be at the discretion of the health director and on an as-needed basis, allowing him to collaborate with individual property owners. It's a more proactive approach in addressing and eliminating outdated treatment methods, such as any lingering cesspools. The systems can provide a higher level of treatment in lots of limited size, high groundwater, ledge, or with separation distance concerns. Additionally, the WPCA has viewed wastewater management districts as a viable option for several years now, they having already drafted a sample ordinance with them. They previously did not have the authority, pending the adoption of this updated facilities plan and the corresponding ordinance for its enactment. And finally, while this approach may come at a higher cost for an individual homeowner, it will be less expensive for the overall community. In conjunction with the implementation of a wastewater management district, other local ordinances could also be updated to supplement or exceed current public health code regulations. One such example could be the introduction of nitrogen discharge limit language. At the time the existing ordinances were written, nitrogen loading concerns had not been thoroughly investigated or implemented by the state or even the federal government. This also allows time for public outreach, education, and participation. The districts and ordinance revisions could be phased for implementation over time. In summary, these recommendations will result in a comprehensive plan customized for the town's long-term wastewater needs. Alternatives address other key issues such as the resiliency and sustainability of the aging septic systems, that proper wastewater disposal in the dense neighborhoods along the shorelines is addressed, and that they've been chosen with sensitivity to being the most feasible and cost-effective using the town's system resources wisely. Thank you.
That's a lot to digest.
Yeah. So, I guess my first question is, this was kind of some high level recommendations, what work do you still have to complete before you complete your final report?
For now, we're just kind of cleaning up the actual recommendations themselves, inserting some actual cost analysis that the DEP requires, and then just filling out details throughout the report, cleaning up the executive summary. We also have a more detailed analysis of one of the community's septic systems coming in that will be inserted into the report as well.
Hey, John, could you stop sharing your screen so they could see the floor? Thanks. Yeah, perfect.
And I guess in terms of, so you're basically, the recommendation is that we would create some sort of ordinance that would require, would it be somebody has either a failure of their system or they're planning to upgrade their system, they would then have to comply to whatever the new regulations are that the town put in place? Is that kind of how this would work? That was my like high level understanding of what was being recommended.
So Peggy, to clarify, in the areas of concern, in those areas of concern, what we would have is like somewhat of a wastewater management district in one of the identified areas of concern. So I don't want to pick any particular one right now, but for example, let's say if we talked about, Neck Road, we know that it's a low-lying area. There's smaller communities, smaller lot sizes. They're also tightly influenced. As an area of concern, if there were repairs to be done in the home that would maybe increase the design flow, if it's an additional bedroom or a accessory structure that would require the upgrade of a septic system, I mean, that at that point, that would be the requirement for the homeowner to do that. If the home had a septic system that was antiquated, like on a cesspool, that would be another, I guess, criteria that would require them to upgrade their septic system. We've talked about its separation to groundwater. Obviously, it would need to be an elevated septic system. Tom and I, we've talked about, and this is still very draft. We've talked about the upgrading the septic system on potentially change of ownership of the home. If it changes, if it changes the use of the dwelling, obviously also seasonal to a seasonal dwelling to more of a full year-round home would also warrant an upgrade to a septic system, but it's not always easy in those lots that we're talking about. They're small, and to really accomplish winterization, you need a full code compliant system. And you saw that there were some variances given, but for winterization, no variances could be given for winterization. You can't have your septic system be 5 feet from the house, 5 feet from the property line. Everything has to comply in order for it to be winterized. But I think the use of maybe AT systems may allow the homeowner to maybe use that as an option because they require less square footage in terms of what that system really needs. But that's an example. I know this is a lot of information at you right now, but I was hoping to kind of sum it up. But John and Matt, please feel free. Tom, feel free to chime in.
All right, thank you, Trent. Yeah, to be sure, there's a lot of technical information, not only from the consultants, but from where Trent is sitting too. He knows very well, what the codes are now and what he can and what he cannot require property owners to do. Don't forget, when we started this process, it was based on the Water Pollution Control Authority's really mandate from the DEEP to identify any potential areas of concern with regard to long-term wastewater management in the town. And of course, the town, and particularly the Board of Selectmen as the administrative authority of the town, is responsible for all of the wastewater in the town to be disposed of in accordance with the Department of Public Health and DEEP requirements. What we found in these areas was a large number of variances that are granted. because of the size of the lots and the spacing of the systems and interference with groundwater. And we found, many property owners simply can't put in standard Department of Public Health systems, and they have to walk away without the opportunity to do that. We would prefer that they make improvements to the system in a way that will improve groundwater quality. And one way to do that is to create this wastewater management district authority, if you will, that would permit Trent to basically approve non-standard systems that would improve groundwater quality. Certainly, a constructed system of sewers fixes all problems in terms of wastewater management, but it's a tremendous expense and really difficult to implement, not only because of the cost of it, but public reaction to such a thing, and the need to, when you lay a sewer down a street, everybody on the street has to pay for it, whether they need it or not. And we're finding that the diversified kind of systems in these areas of concern don't really lend themselves very well to a constructed system such as a community septic system. Although in certain small areas, it still is a viable approach, but we're not really leaning towards adopting them at this time because of the other disadvantages that John talked about that I just mentioned. And I just want to remind the selectmen that as we get close to making a final recommendation, we really need to have engagement on the part of the selectmen and possibly some meetings just with the boards to really talk about what these changes, what these recommendations mean going down the road, so that everyone understands them and is able to accept responsibility for them. One final note is I did meet with the POCD planning people a couple of weeks ago, and they had a lot of questions about sewering and downtown area and septic systems and things. And I gave them an overview of what we were up to, what our plans are moving forward. And, they've been able to, consider that as part of the POCD update. And thank you, Matt and John, for doing a great job on the presentation.
I'd like to ask John a question.
Sure.
John, in terms of coastal resiliency and climate change, how did that factor into your analysis?
Yeah, so, the idea of the resiliency and, the inundation risks, that was all factored in as part of the existing conditions. We first looked at those low-lying areas, and that's what kind of helped us hone in and refine the areas of concerns themselves. So you have those circle beaches, those neck road areas. And then that helps kind of guide you towards what might be an actual better alternative. It's one thing, as Tom mentioned, you can put in a community system and everybody will have to connect to such a system. But if there is no house in an inundated area or ones that are, that have been flooded, then why would you spend money on actually building such a system? The decentralized wastewater management systems and the AT systems gives you kind of a little bit more flexibility. It shifts, the focus onto the property owner instead of kind of putting all of the onus on the town or the community system.
John, to the extent you're able to look ahead in time,
Mhm.
will there be more areas of concern?
It's actually interesting when we were looking into you had the 2016 study with the climate resiliency, everything, and it really didn't factor in as much as one would have thought. It's not going to really expand the areas of concern. They just kind of stay consistent, as the years go.
Yeah,
I
that,
think-
Al, that's a great question about resiliency, and I think you're speaking specifically of sea level rise. And our own resiliency committee in town wrestled with this too, because it's more of a lot by lot specific impact than a full area. So I think one of the things that we have to struggle with moving forward is if a lot becomes inundated and is unlivable, the septic system issue kind of goes away. But at the same time, there are systems that could be installed. They're costly for the homeowner, but if the intent is to stay in a home and, maybe they raise it up or whatever it is that makes the home habitable, a system would have to be put in to accommodate that. And again, they're in the area identified as management districts. So as we get more and more technically, as we see more and more advances in the individual on-site disposal systems, Trent and the town sanitarian and whoever else is involved, zoning perhaps, can see that these systems are applied to those individual lots. So I think we have a way forward with that, but it is a challenge, as you mentioned, Al.
Tom or others, is there a timeline here that we're working under, not necessarily to complete the plan, but to mitigate and ultimately achieve our end game, which is, clearing up our wastewater here. So is there a goal in mind of, is it a 10-year plan? Is it a 20-year plan? Like, what is our goal to move these homes and these areas into a positive direction?
John, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
Let me chime in. I haven't had a chance to speak yet.
Okay, Matt.
Hey, this is Matt. I would say in terms of the time frame, so this is a 20-year planning report for managing kind of wastewater disposal in the community. However, kind of realistically, I look at this as much more than a 20-year plan. I look at this more as a probably a 30 or 40-year plan, because especially since we're going to continue with basically a lot by lot solution instead of constructed solutions. So with that said, as these properties slowly meet a kind of an action criteria that gets set up by the WPCA of either potentially property transfer or some sort of renovation to a home or flood resiliency measures, those types of triggers would then one by one start requiring homes to make sure their systems are compliant for adequate wastewater treatment, renovation, and absorption into the soil. So it's a much more natural playing kind of the long game approach to solving the problem instead of taking some controversial methods where you just kind of blanket apply to an entire community neighborhood area and said everybody must be compliant in 5 years regardless of cost. That just doesn't work because people's finances don't just allow you to dig a big hole in your backyard and pour money into it in a short period of time. But when you have like a property transfer or you've saved up money to do a renovation to your home, that's generally a more appropriate time. So it would be a longer time frame, and to be patient is probably the best approach.
Well, and Scott, or I'm sorry, was that Scott or was that?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think in the shorter term, I mean, what will come out of this report is certain recommendations, and if the on-site management district approach is what we recommend, it will include a draft ordinance and a set of rules and regs that will be followed. That, of course, will have to go through the typical process of getting new ordinances approved. There will have to be, you know, some legal costs involved in setting it up, assuring that it's all on, you know, on paper, it's all legit. And then, of course, the DEEP will have a say in this as well, because they funded the study, and whatever the recommendation is, has to be consistent with their idea of what a good recommendation is. And, you know, they may come back with questions and comments that we may have to address. And that might take some time. And then there would be some assurances on the part of the town that they will in fact implement the recommended plan. So there's probably, I think irrespective of what Matt said about the long-term engagement of the plan, I think there's probably a couple of years in setting it up and really starting to make the changes that we feel are appropriate to be made in the permitting of septic systems in town. And then there'll be probably some kind of a look back period. You know, there'll be different little aspects to the plan that will probably take some tweaking and discussion on the part of the selectmen, legal counsel, DEP, WPCA. So it will be a little bit of a process, but it can be implemented, I would think, in a couple of years.
I have a question on the property transfer. What does that look like? Because one of the things we're talking about is the cost for installing one of these systems. What is the cost? What is the time frame? Is that, how is that going to affect a real estate transaction for somebody that's trying to sell or purchase a home?
That's a good question. I think I'm going to add to that. I think that particular criteria is still left to be discussed, because there's a lot of transactions as homes that it's something that's going to be hard to regulate. I mean, people buy houses cash. I mean, we would have to, there's no notification system when somebody purchases a home. I mean, there is the initial inspection that, maybe a mortgage company requires by a septic company to, verify that it is code compliant, or if it's not code compliant or operating correctly at the time of the sale. That's as little as the town gets involved in the transaction of a home. So, I don't want that to be one of the bullets that we particularly say is going to be a priority, or one of the primary ones. I think that there's other means. And again, I just want to take a couple steps back to just say that the areas of concern were really identified based on lot size, soil permeability, obviously the tidally influenced density of a neighborhood. Those things are what triggers an area of concern. Now, every house is very different in those area of concern. There's some houses that are operating fully code compliant without an issue, without a problem. And I think this is to look ahead. This is to look ahead. There aren't any extreme issues at this point, but I think, what happens to the homeowner who does maybe want to renterize, and they have constraints. What can the town do? It's not always about regulation. Sometimes it can also or an enforcement. It can also be something that helps a homeowner. Whereas there's other places that are maybe still serviced by a private well that also, but do have public water accessible to them. And because they don't want to hook up to public water, we're limiting the amount of repair area on the property. So maybe that's a criteria that we would also put in the wastewater management district, that if you have public water accessible as a way to put more of a conventional septic system or code compliant septic system, meaning without a variance, that is an option. So we already have in the current ordinance an increased separation distance to tidally influenced lots anyway. So we already, have some more of a stringent ordinance town versus the regular public health code for the state.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trent. And just to get more to that point about real estate transfer, it's certainly not going to help the real estate market, because no matter what you do, you're going to be trying to get a more advanced system on a lot, and that's going to cost some money. And I think the jury is still out as to how the wording is, but if we require these systems to be upgraded at the time of transfer, that's a good thing, because the WPCA is concerned with exactly what it sounds like, water pollution. That's what we're concerned with, not real estate values. And we're not going to recommend something that's unfeasible financially, but we're not going to recommend something that doesn't address the issue of water quality. And yeah, it's like, the person gets a property inspection and the property inspector says you need a new roof, or you need a new boiler, or you need a new electric system, or whatever. Yeah, that affects the real estate market, I'm sure. And this will be no different than those kinds of things.
I think that one of the, next steps that I think would be helpful for the board is really to understand at a deeper level of what this would mean for a homeowner, right? So what is considered compliant right now in some of these areas of concern? And then what some of these possible changes could mean for them. So when you talk about something, if you have a cesspool right now and your cesspool fails, what are our regulations require of that? Okay, if they start having a problem with their cesspool system. So, and not to answer all this now, but just to understand a little bit more about where we are today with our regulations and what the changes would be if we were to do this as part of the recommendations. The other thing is, I know we talked kind of in previous discussions, I do know there other states are offering incentives for people to upgrade their septic systems, and I think they're going after federal money for that. I just wonder if there's anything you've heard the state of Connecticut is offering or looking into trying to, address this through some sort of rebate programs or anything, just like they're doing for energy, but to make people upgrade, their septic system. So if you're familiar with anything in the state of Connecticut, I'm just curious because I'm familiar with it in New York State, and wondering if you think that's an opportunity that you might see coming down the road.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt that those programs are out there. And in fact, your facility plan, when it's finished and adopted and approved by the DEEP, that opens the door to funding for basically through the Clean Water Fund, the state of Connecticut. But there may be other avenues of funding as well, along the lines of, just as you said, the utility companies offer incentives, things like that. But the first step is to adopt and approve a plan that's that's consistent with the DEEP's need to protect groundwater and is consistent with the town's responsibility for seeing that the groundwater is protected. So the money will come from somewhere, and rebates and revolving funds and maybe even town funding can be applied to mitigate the cost for particular homeowners. And, that's a whole, a real good area for further discussions.
I think it helps when we look about possibly needing to implement some changes to understand how to make them practical too, right? Mm-hmm. How are we going to pay for this stuff, or how are homeowners going to pay for this stuff? So I think it's a good part of the discussion to make sure that that's kind of, I think, mentioned in any kind of plan that that we would be exploring those types of opportunities.
Well, certainly with this plan, we want to avoid some of the mistakes some neighboring communities have made where suddenly the report's done and then the DP asks, what are you gonna get the first 200 homes upgraded? And we'd like to see it all done at the same time. I mean, gosh, you better just give everybody Tom's home number, because you're gonna be getting a lot of calls for something like that. But instead, if we take a more gradual approach, a more sustainable approach, that kind of rewards homeowners who are proactive, and instead of penalizing everybody for just living in a certain part of town, I really think that's the better approach to go. But in Connecticut, historically, there's just been less direct funding for that type of lot by lot repair. But I'm hopeful that might change.
Well, certainly a lot to talk about.
You have 30 to 40 years to talk about it.
I want to, first of all, just thank you and thank the WPCA. Tom, I know that you've invested a tremendous amount of time in this. Obviously, thankful to Trent for all your hard work. It's great to see that we're getting to this point so we can have those good discussions about, policy changes that the board is going to have to review. And so I think having frequent informative conversations over the next 6 months is good. But when we get to those points where we're trying to make real decisions and through an ordinance process, everybody's, informed and fully engaged, and we're at a point where we're all comfortable moving forward with any changes to the regulations. So I want to thank you for that. And I guess we'll look for maybe another update once the plan is complete. But I think it would be helpful at one point just to, to have maybe a tutorial a little bit about, what's happening right now on the ground, because I don't think any of us really have a clue unless you put a septic system in recently, what the rules are today and what the complexities are. So just under existing ordinances. So any other comments from the board?
Thank you, though. Great job.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I know this is a big undertaking, so I appreciate it.
Thanks, Trent. Thank you, John. Thank you, Matt.
Great.
We'll be in
Thank
touch.
you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
That was helpful because I think this has always been a somewhat abstract topic, just because it's so big, and, it's helpful to understand kind of what direction we're moving towards. So with that, our next item, next item on the agenda is to review the proposed revisions to the senior tax relief ordinance as recommended by the Board of Finance. So in your packet, you have a draft ordinance as well as a presentation was sent to you earlier that was presented to the Board of Finance. This board has seen some components of that. The first probably half of it is talking about what we have in place right now. And so I know this board has seen that part of the presentation. The latter half of the presentation talks about the recommended changes that the staff had proposed to the Board of Finance, and then the Board of Finance made a few modifications with their working group that included John Rasmus and Jude Hestian. And then the board last week agreed to those changes and basically voted with a recommendation to our board to move this ordinance forward. So the thought was tonight, if we want to spend a little bit of time on the changes, and we added on here calling a public hearing, because my thought was we're under a pretty tight timeline. If you recall, the timeline issues here are we want this to be in place by February 1st, which is when people start applying for their tax relief. We have to get this all approved, go through the ordinance process, and then it needs 30 days. It goes into effect, or 15, I'm forgetting now. So 15, there's a timeline in here. So my thought was we could have the presentation, we could move this to the public hearing at least, and then we would still have an opportunity if we felt, there were things we were comfortable with, or that the public maybe came back at the public hearing, we would still have a meeting or two to make amendments. But we can, so does that make sense then tonight is to focus, and I don't know what page is the best page to start. I know Heather has worked everybody's worked incredibly hard on this. The staff has done a great job, and Austin's done a great job. I know Stacy's been pulled into it. I know I was pulled into it at one point. So yeah, this is the one thing you didn't get involved in. So there's still time.
You have
so It's a little easier for the people
Okay,
from
we're done.
home if you just sit up here. And then I think if you could just go to some of the pages towards the back that are the recommended changes.
19.
I think 19 is where
Is
it
it
starts in the
19? Okay.
presentation, yeah.
I was thinking we'd go through all 25 pages.
I'm like, it's a couple hours.
Yeah.
Buckle up.
Get your snacks.
All right.
All right, so these are the changes that, so big picture, combining two programs into one to make it easier and more effective for seniors in town and disabled folks in town. So we're combining the local tax abatement and the freeze into one program. So qualified applicants will receive both the abatement and the freeze if they've owned the home for 10 years or more. If you've owned your home for less than 10 years, you'll receive the local tax abatement benefit only. So there's some folks who we will grandfather in. You'll see 18 applicants on the program would be affected. However, those applicants received the local tax abatement benefit, which was higher than the freeze benefit. So they would see no financial impact at all from the changes that we're proposing. So income guidelines are adjusted by the area median income, and that's consistent with the current tax freeze program. Using the percentages to calculate tiers of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70% of that median income. One income tier structure from the freeze program and match the tiers to the abatement program, and do away with separate married versus unmarried structure. So the qualifiers and implications will allow participants who are delinquent in taxes to participate. That's a big deal.
Can I ask questions as we go?
Sure, go for it. Yeah.
So we're not forgiving the delinquency. They're just gonna be allowed to participate.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. Yep, so yeah, definitely not forgiving the delinquency, but allowing them to participate in the program, which will then hopefully allow them to catch up, help them that way. The maximum assessed value is currently $392,600. That's based on the current guidelines of the median assessed value of the freeze program. There's 12 applicants currently receiving the town benefit that exceed that limit, but we're proposing to grandfather them into the new program. Local tax abatement continues and will continue to be adjusted annually by the CPI. We've added a $500 benefit category to those in the highest income tier. And we've also added an additional longevity bonus benefit of $250 for those residents on the program with 30 years or more of consecutive residency. So really giving a bonus to those who have lived in town and contributed the longest.
I have a quick question. Do you anticipate seeing more residents that exceed that maximum assessed value with our new revaluations?
We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go up as well. The median will go up.
Yes.
Okay,
it's
so
a-
that'll all
it's a-
go
it's an
together.
adjusted number.
So we're adding an allowance for income infusions as well, or one-time swings in income that would otherwise reset the start date of the freeze. So currently, if your income in 1 year kicks you out of the freeze program, so you're over income, you go back and start from scratch. So this will eliminate that for up to 3 times per lifetime. Allowance for an affidavit to be used to claim medical expenses in place of an IRS Schedule A.
What's the thinking there?
So a lot of folks don't file a Schedule A anymore because
The
I'll
big
get that.
standard
Okay,
deduction
actually-
that was passed a
I
couple
never,
years ago.
it's called, the standard deduction is so high that it would, a lot of folks don't use that anymore. Um, And then clarifying the surviving spouse benefit eligibility should the death of a taxpayer occur and they were listed as the sole owner of record. There'll be no discontinuance of eligibility, so husband and wife, married, living in the house for 25 years. One of the spouses dies and that spouse was the sole listed owner. Currently, the surviving spouse would start over because they will then be listed as the owner. This would allow for a continuance of eligibility. It clarifies a review process should the program reach 0.7% of the town's current operating budget. And then the Board of Finance would review and make recommendations if that number was ever reached. And it also, the new ordinance clarifies the appeals process. So here's proposed guidelines with some estimated costs. So we have, you see the income tiers on the far left. And those 20% are the median town income percentages of what those numbers are. I don't want to have to, I don't think you want me to go through that whole chart. Any questions on that?
The bottom line, the 617.
Yep.
Is that the expected subscription to the program that we're expecting? So
Correct.
Roughly 61%.
Right, so the max that, the percentage of the town budget that this is allowed to reach is 1%. So it's still well below that 1% mark.
These numbers are based on the current participants in the program. So
Okay.
we took a look at the current participants in the program and figured out where they would fall within each income tier.
And where is it before the change?
0.42.
So 412?
0.42% right now is 0.42%. If we do this.
Okay, but since we're near $100 million budget, so a 0.42 is about 420,000-ish. And so, okay,
1% is the cap.
1% is the cap.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about a $200,000 impact to the budget. How much of that is to the deferrals, though?
This does not include the deferral. Does it? No.
So this is $200,000 extra that gets redistributed amongst the tax base.
Correct.
Okay.
Because once folks come off the deferral, then that money then comes back to the town.
Right.
But also, does this require an applicant? Do they have to apply to the program? Or do they automatically just qualify in?
No, so they have to, even
There's a
currently,
level of proactivity, I guess.
yeah, so residents would have to apply yearly, like they currently do anyway. Which isn't an issue currently and shouldn't be an issue going forward.
I'd like to follow up Scott's question. This has been a challenging program to administer. Do these changes complicate or simplify those challenges?
So it simplifies it for the residents, for sure.
Because it's one program.
One program. So, we've given the same speech hundreds of times to folks when they come in, that you get the greater of the benefit. Sometimes that's difficult to explain to folks, difficult for people to comprehend that. Which one am I gonna get? I want the freeze. Well, you're getting the freeze, but it's not as beneficial to you today as the tax abatement is. So now that conversation won't happen. You're getting both. If you apply and you qualify, you're gonna get both benefits. So it'll be easier to understand and explain to folks. And they're gonna get a greater benefit.
Have we road tested that to that point with some residents, just to, have the conversation of the new potential program? Just get their feedback on it?
So I think,
That's what the public hearing's gonna be.
Well, I gotta think we've done our homework. before we
Yeah.
get
yeah,
to
so
the public
the
hearing.
folks who
Well,
are enrolled and the folks who
Yeah,
will
they know the
qualify,
people that apply. for
They-
it, so say that.
they're gonna get a greater benefit. So
So it's a no-brainer.
they'll be happy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that to your point though, Scott, that we should probably have this at the senior center. The public hearing, you know what I'm saying? So rather than having, I know that that's not what we just agreed to before with the dates,
Will the
but
private check be there?
yeah.
Just wondering.
But, somehow, or we could do a informal information session, maybe at the senior center, and then have the formal public hearing, as we talked about before. Because I think the outreach, so they understand it, and it might give an opportunity to have it be more informal, so you can have that back and forth, right, versus our typical public hearing process. So I think it's a good point.
Just a question of process. This is really owned by the Board of Finance, right? But because we've got it through the ordinance process, it has to clear through us.
And public.
Well, in the public, because it's an ordinance. I guess what I'm getting to is this all seems good. I'm wondering if we need to really scratch too hard at it if it's been vetted by the Board of Finance. They're coming to us with something that they think is a good idea,
Yeah.
they support, they need us to move it through the process. We could ask some clarifying questions for our own benefit, but I'm not sure that
I'm with you.
we should do much more than
We're not the experts here, I guess.
I will say, and this has been a year of the staff really
Yeah.
going back and forth, and this had a lot of iterations. So I would echo your comments, and then let's see how the public reacts, right? And then we can kind of go from there.
I gotta think the public are fairly supportive of it, given it's a net larger benefit. And more of a simple process.
I think your public challenge is people misreading this for, the proverbial, oceanfront house getting a tax deal, and they're not, and that's not what this is, and so that's, I think, where everybody's head goes, right?
Yeah, that's always been a conversation
Yeah.
we've had with
That's
folks,
right.
What if there's somebody who lives on, one of the beach roads, and that just doesn't happen because we have asset tests in place that.
Right, somebody who can modulate their income.
Okay.
Would still have to pass through the house value gate, right? And you can do one but not the other, and so.
So the gating factor is house value and income. So
Right.
both.
And residents.
And 10 years of residency. Got it.
And I think that was one of the things when we wrestled with this, is that the purpose of the freeze was to reward people who had been in town a long time, paid their taxes, put their kids through the school district. And now we were here to provide them some relief, right? And so we wanted to ensure that that was what they felt. And I think, to your point, a lot of them didn't I want the freeze, but the reality was the abatement might have been better, and then it got complicated. And so this does simplify. You are getting a benefit for being here a long time.
This is a cash flow solution. This is to help household cash flow.
Cash flow and planning, so knowing what your property tax bill will be, as long as you continue to qualify and apply every year, what that will be going forward, and allowing you to plan accordingly is extremely important to folks as they age.
Are people perceiving this though? I mean, we hear a lot of discussion about just, I want to be able to stay in my home. I want to stay in Madison. Affordability are folks perceiving it as such?
Absolutely. This is a great way to, keep people in town, keep older folks and disabled folks in their homes. And sort of, respecting how long they've lived in town and contributed to the town.
Yeah.
Some of the earlier slides address the average participant on the program and the different benefit tiers. And so you can really see in terms of income, what these folks are working with monthly, and how much they really rely on these benefits to save. So,
And it probably
Let's go
doesn't
through all
do
the
everything
slides.
for them, but it helps.
my memory of the public hearing from long ago, where you were involved. Scott, were you involved?
I think so.
Yeah. My memory is that the three qualifiers that we put in helped a lot with folks who thought this was a improper giveaway program.
Yeah, that will be at the public hearing. I think delving into those three qualifiers will help ease any questions that folks who have those will.
Yeah.
Now we just need this for our cars.
No.
We need a tax freeze on our cars.
Registration is up too. just-
Yeah, so I'm just thinking that, with those thoughts, if the board is comfortable moving this to public hearing. you know?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can then move on to, item 10, which
I
is
had a lot of feedback,
discuss.
but I'm just hoping.
Yeah.
Hold it for the public hearing?
Yeah.
Discuss and take action to call a public hearing on Wednesday, November 15th, 2023 at 6 P.M. in the Hammonasset Room and via Zoom to review proposed revisions of the senior tax relief ordinance.
Do you want to amend that to the senior center
Well, let's call it and then we'll talk about it.
Okay,
Can I get-
so move.
or second?
Okay, so no, what we were thinking is what we could do is a separate information session at the senior center. That way it could be during the day, which might be more convenient, and we could try to do it maybe the week before, something at the senior center. We don't, and board members can attend, but at least it'd be more explanatory maybe, whereas if this is like the final hearing before then, our board would look at, either adopt or make changes to the ordinance. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
And
Okay.
where would the public hearing be held?
The public hearing is going to be here before our board of selectmen meeting that night. So in the Hammonasset room, though, I think we had to book that one. This is the one that's Monday night that kind of kept bouncing back and forth. So our board of selectmen meeting is now.
No, this is the before Board of Finance, sorry.
Prior to Board of Finance, that's right. This is the one before Board of Finance. So we put it at 6 o'clock.
Here.
And no, we had to put it in the Hammonasset room because we were worried it might bump into Board of Finance, that's right.
And something was already, yeah, they were already in here, right?
Yeah, they were already booked in here, so, I mean, I guess then I guess knowing that, we could just do this at the senior center and not do a separate public information session. I would worry, I was thinking this was bumping up to our meeting, but I forgot, this is not that meeting, that's the strategic plan public hearing. And then this one is the,
Two things going on.
yeah. So would you rather that we move the location of the public hearing on Wednesday and just get it all done in one shot?
So we would have to look at the calendar to see if the room's available.
Having separate ones, I think, isn't such a bad idea.
Gives people a chance to sort of digest it too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and you might get
More discussion.
people that can't make, the hearing, so you'll be able to get some feedback.
Yeah,
Okay,
So, yeah, I think that's a great idea.
okay, all right, so then why don't you let me know what would work at the senior center?
For an informational hearing.
Yeah.
And then have some the public hearing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so then with that, all in favor?
That's
Aye. Okay, great, excellent, so we'll call the public hearing, and then we'll figure out the information session.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you guys for
Can't leave.
everything on this. You're gonna celebrate when this thing passes, I'm sure. It's a lot of work by everybody, guys.
They're not staying. They're not staying.
Oh, we should.
Fully support Sam. Just no.
Whatever he's asking for.
So item number 11 is discuss and take action to appoint the following members to the Emergency Operations Center Firehouse Expansion Facility Committee. Sam Yura, Emergency Management Director, Fred Carroll, Madison Post Company number 1, Travis Booth, Madison Post Company number 1, Bob London, Madison Volunteer Fire Company, and James Cottage.
So,
second?
Okay, and this was basically, we approved the charge for this, and then we came back with the recommended members of the committee.
are we appointing a chair?
My recommendation is yes, and we would want Sam, because he wears so many different hats on this, but
Would you accept that?
Want to do something else?
No, of course.
Okay, so with that, I'll amend the motion to also appoint Sam DeBur the chair of the commission. or committee.
Just curious too, did we interview James Cottage as the?
No,
member
this
of the public, or
was,
is
we
it
decided not to go through a whole process. It's because it's kind of a quasi. you know,
Town slash
Yeah,
private.
yeah, and we wanted this to kind of move. through
Mr.
quickly.
Cottage serves on our pension board,
Okay. But known commodity.
retired New Haven fireman.
And I know they select,
Construction business.
yeah,
Awesome.
and that was another kind of nice
Oh,
fit
good.
in the construction background, so.
Great.
Okay, so with that amendment, may I call for approval for the motion?
Aye.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Great.
Aye.
All right, thank you. So we've got your committee now. We can move forward with that. We've just got to get the agreement done. Okay, great. Moving on to, we should put you up earlier, Sam. So, I know. I don't know. Talk to Jacqueline. She's the one that works all this, so I don't usually mess around with it too much. Discuss and take action to approve the proposed citation ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and basically we had kind of, we're all happy with this last time, but there was a few tweaks at the public hearing that our town planner had mentioned that I thought were good recommendations, and so we went back to Carrie. It was just minor modifications to some verbiage, and those are reflected in markup. So if there's any further discussion on that?
Nope.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, this new ordinance passes. Whew, it's nice to get that done. So now we're gonna have the staff sit together and really gotta go through how we're gonna handle it all. But, and with that, let's move on to, last item is citizens' comments. Are there any hands raised? Jacqueline, if you're still awake out there.
I'm awake. No hands are raised.
Great. All right, with that then, I guess,
Move-